I don't know if this is my memory of this or because I saw the DAS video when I was in grade 8 afterwards. But I feel like I remember it happening in that huge play room when, like, as early as 5 years old or 6. And then, I mean, I remember you guys being there and doing it and being at home and being in the classroom and talking about what you guys were there to do, to film. And then doing a little mock peacemaking and who was going to do it. And so I remember being aware that that was a thing, obviously, that we were learning and trying to do. It's an alternative school, but it also had its focus, at least when I went there, on conflict resolution. And they had this story of the Peaceosaurus and this thing that we would do, peacemaking, which is essentially like a program or a structure that we could learn, a formula of how we could implement conflict resolution. Super straightforward. You have a problem, each kid has a peacemaker, so then all of a sudden you have this group that's trying to, solve a problem. I was there from JK to grade 6, so I have no idea. I never went to any other elementary school. It was smaller, and I think my mom was probably one of the parents that was happy to be involved, and I think that was important to her. We had our own way of working things out at home. Definitely the whole talking and acknowledging and allowing space for addressing issues, that was in my house and still is to this day. You're allowed to have a problem. My parents probably knew the formula or the ritual of peacemaking. We're a house of 3, me and my parents, so there could only ever be one peacemaker. So I wonder, and my father is who he is. They consciously chose to put me in that school, so they wanted to embrace that culture or that reality, that norm. I was very conscious of it. It worked well. I don't have any memories of it being frustrating. I remember probably priding myself if anybody said, "Hey, do you want to be my peacemaker?" If it was my problem, or if I had an issue with someone, I would approach them, or they'd approach me, and then we'd each grab a peacemaker, somebody that we wanted to help us solve or work out our problem. And then you'd sit down and everybody would be acknowledged. Everybody would have a moment, or however long they needed, to explain their piece. There'd be some active listening in there where your peacemaker would maybe rephrase what you said. Maybe even the person would do that as well, the person that you had the conflict with. And then you'd try to come to some sort of a solution or an agreement, or like somehow let go of it and decide if you could move on or not, or what you needed to have to move on. I remember, acting out peacemaking, even if there wasn't a problem. People liked, I guess, doing plays. I don't know when we would do them. I don't know when we would, it's not like that's what we would do on our recesses, but everybody always seemed pretty keen to have a peacemaking, and it would be over the silliest stuff. I definitely remember there being a lot of conversation about it. We weren't expected to just go do it ourselves. There was a lot of support. Anne and Lori, my teachers for many years, and at such a young age, definitely role modeled that. If younger kids had problems, you would go and ask one of the older kids to be a peacemaker, and then they would have been doing it for a few years. There was a very overall wholeness to it.
Then the other kid gets it, and then they have a fight.
Okay, so we need 2 kids playing ball?
Yeah.
Okay, and then another kid who comes up?
Yeah.
So there are 3 kids in the problem?
Yeah.
You could always go to teachers, adults,
Does this happen?
with your problems or with your concerns. I don't know, maybe it was too nurturing, if there's such a thing. Because I think that kind of shocked me when I was in high school, even middle school, that my middle school was different. It did not have that same environment, but maybe that was because we were older. I don't know, it felt like home. I only remember once having a peacemaking where it was pretty serious. I called someone a name and it was so hurtful, and I don't remember what it was, but that was one of the first times that I really had to experience, I don't know, having to own that. The one real problem, peacemaking, that I can remember is when I made a huge mistake and was just a total horrible person, had a horrible moment, not a horrible person, just had a horrible moment of being mean. And maybe it's not okay, maybe it's not pretty, but you own it, and you and the other person or whoever can let go of that and move forward. And in order to do that, you're actively listening, and you're kind about your actions and other people's actions. The teachers, I remember Anne and Lori, that was a very interesting experience for me. Every time that it happened, that they would acknowledge that they weren't available to the kids. So if we were to have free play, and generally they would be sitting in this chair or they would be available, but maybe there would be a moment where Anne was frustrated and she would be like, you know what, I'm frustrated, you need to leave me alone. I just need a few moments. And me being like, what? Okay. And then seeing her go through whatever process she needed to go through for that moment, and then being like, okay, I'm available. What did you need? Or what did you want? Or, you know. So again, that owning whatever you were going through and it being okay and that being a strong thing. It hasn't continued though, like that specific of a, interaction or exchange. Being older, we're not in that environment anymore, and we're dealing with people who have not had this experience. So to sit there and say like, what I think we need right now is a peacemaking, and be like, sorry, what? Peace what? My moments of frustration feeling like this isn't working here. Like that, I would have a situation be like, peacemaking, that's what I need to be doing right now. That's what needs to happen. And then that moment trying to implement it, or just like realizing that that's not where everybody's going. There's a huge lack of active listening. I was there for all of my elementary school years. So my experience, I guess, from when I was like 11, 12 and on into high school, and even now, it's just this huge disappointment of us not being taught how to actively listen. And we listen, instead of listening to hear, we listen to wait until we can say our piece. And it's so frustrating because I fall out of that. To get a word in edgewise, I'm like, oh, okay, I need to not be listening. I need to be waiting until you're done so that I can say something profound. I don't know. And that's very frustrating. The way that I deal with problems, I don't think that I acknowledge them or tell somebody that I have a problem with them or something, with something that's happened, or I don't even look to try and come to a common ground with someone. My way of dealing with it is I'll acknowledge there's a problem, and then I'll try and figure out what I have control over, and not even try and engage the other person, or engage them way less than what I learned at DAS. I left DAS in grade 6. I graduated, and then I went to another alternative school. I went to Delta Senior Alternative School. It's a middle school, super small, 50 kids in the whole school. We were just on, again, kind of like DAS, on top of another school. 2 classrooms, grade 7 class and a grade 8 class. Savannah and I went there, which was cool. So that was definitely a comfort, going to a new school, but also having somebody, a friend, and we were friends, that knew where we came from. Yeah, I couldn't imagine that transition actually without somebody who knew my story from before. We were fortunate, I think, that there are some pretty cool kids at the school, and that school, and those teachers, and the parents of those kids in that community. It worked. They were nice. I don't remember there being a real need for peacemaking. Delta, my middle school years, yeah, I feel like it was a successful time. Ended up going into a program that I wanted / was encouraged by my parents, the International Baccalaureate program for high school, which is just an enriched program, academic program. So then, if you can do well in that, then you can get into a university. I remember, being super shocked when I went into high school. What do you mean I have to call you Miss or Mr., whatever your last name is? Like, you're a person, let me just call you by your first name. That was huge for me, because it seems so impersonal. So going from DAS, where there had already been a lot of change, to then going to Delta, those 2 years of middle school, it was just kind of a continuation of the change, but still like small classes, a lot of, teachers / some parents that are involved for the students, accessibility. That was still kind of continued. I went from DAS, that was 100, to Delta, that was 50 kids, to a school with over 1,000 kids. It was mind-blowing for me. And again, I ended up going to a school that was not in my neighborhood. Always my experience of school is like not knowing anybody when I first enter. My world and my experience of high school was like just being so overwhelmed by those tribal years that we go through, and just being so frustrated that everybody couldn't just get along. I feel like that has something to do with DAS, that I was used to everybody being friends and doing things together. And sure, maybe having somebody or some few that you preferred spending some of your time with or playing with or doing projects with, but yeah, just navigating that huge social scene was overwhelming for me. I have somewhat recently watched the documentary. I think there was an actual fight or issue caught between like Molly and Tara.
I saw you really shouting in each other's faces, so I know that you're angry.
Molly was interrupting me when I was talking. Yeah.
So what are we going to do now?
Maybe we can bring Molly back in by, I don't know. I don't know.
The solution was all the girls forgetting why they were frustrated, giggling contagiously. Even a parent was there. Hannah's dad was there. Which is interesting because I don't even remember the adults that were really present. The only reason I remember there was a dad was because the kids were sitting on him. But the point is that the focus was on the kids, and like it was led by the kids. And they, without saying it, they weren't able to verbalize it, but they knew it. And Anne was like, is this past? Like, is this no longer an issue? But the kids already knew it, but they just wanted to get back and play. I thought that was super amazing to see. And I don't know, powerful for me, because just seeing like girls being friends in such a big group and having an issue and letting go of it, that was awesome. Because I don't know, my experience in high school was like just a lot of girls, super cliquey and having so many issues and so much, and just not having a way to deal with it. Anyways, so seeing that was super cool. Obviously, I created friendships, but it was still very different. Like that was always my thing of just, I had such a horrible time trying to wrap my head around the divisions. And maybe that's inevitable when you're dealing with such a huge group of people. Stayed at the same high school, graduated the IB program, and then went to university. That was scary. Because I went to university alone with no one else. I went to Glendon College. So, yeah, York, but it's its own campus. But at that point, I think I'd given up on the whole community and friends, and I was in a relationship. So that was my security blanket, which characterized my experience in university, I think, because I was a commuter student. So I had little faith in finding any community at school. I knew I had my home, my parents, and my boyfriend, and at the time, and so I would go to school, go to class, and then leave. For my undergrad, major in psych, minor sociology. I always liked talking about problems. And then the fact that I wasn't able to do it, like I'd known a time that it was encouraged to do it and cool to do it and the right thing to do in DAS from when you were younger and in my home, then to high school and realizing that not being able to do it created a lot of issues, and trying to figure out how to get back to that. Psychology seemed like the answer. Now I'm out of that and not quite sure where I want to go. So I'm saying that I know that psychology is not my main focus. Right now I'm studying for the LSATs, maybe gonna apply to law school. But I'm still unsure about that. It's a long process. Well, I'd never say the words peacemaking. Given up on that language. Because it doesn't mean anything in our society. Other than maybe if you're into like international relations and talking about the UN. People don't know what conflict resolution means. I gave up on teaching it. There's wonderful moments where I meet people, I don't know where they're from or what their story is, and we can handle an issue or a problem and communicate and mediate and do probably what, do a conflict resolution, create one, work through one. But I really think it comes down to active listening. But that's something that they know. I don't know why they know that.